Welcome to Silent Sheds, Just the Tips. I'm Jason, and today we'll be going over tips for CSGO 2. Valorant. So today I'll be splitting the video into three important sections: shooting, movement, and communication. This guide is meant for beginners, people who have never played a tactical shooter before or tried the Valorant beta, so this is for them. It's going to be pretty basic, just want to cover as much as we can in a short amount of time. So without further ado, let's get into the first topic, which should be shooting. So compared to other shooters like Apex or Call of Duty, Valorant is much slower, and that's very much reflected in its playstyle and shooting style. To help you get used to the new shooting style, I would really recommend going into the firing range and trying every gun, unloading a few clips, because what you'll figure out is every gun has a different spread to it. What the spread or spray refer to is the pattern the bullets make when you continue to hold down fire. That being said, a good thing to remember is after about the first 6 or 7 bullets, RNG is played into the spread, which means the bullets become random and it's not so much skill. So to help you a little more accurate, I would recommend firing in burst, or after your first or second bullet's fired, you crouch, which will naturally lower your crosshair to keep it around head level. Speaking of head level, your crosshair should always be there, because for most guns, one tap to the head is almost always a kill. If not, a tap to the head and the body usually will do it then. So if you're still not getting the hang of spray patterns and firing consistently, you can always just try tapping. The first shot from a gun when you're standing completely still is almost always a laser, which means it's 100% accurate. So you can just find the sweet spot where you can keep tapping while giving your gun time to rest and keep lasering. As long as you're hitting headshots, you'll be almost just as effective. But while tapping, you'll also have to try to remember that in this game, while scoped in, you are at a slower rate of fire than if you were hip firing. But at the same time, knowing that when you're scoped in, it doesn't really give you any accuracy except zooming you in a little bit. So that being said, I would almost try getting used to hip firing with every gun. Even the Marshall is 100% accurate when you're standing still from a hip fire, which is crazy. Now notice how I said standing still, because if you are moving while firing, it makes your bullets become wildly inaccurate. That being said, adding a little bit of an AD strafe while standing still can help you dodge some bullets while keeping some semblance of accuracy. So with all this talk about movement, let's move on to the next topic, which is movement. Almost everything you do involving movement comes with a sound, and this is very true for your footsteps. While running, on the minimap you can see a circle around your character icon indicating how far away people will be able to tell that you're running. The only way around this is to walk. This makes your footsteps completely silent and even gets rid of that radius, so they'll never know where you're at. It's best to try to walk as much as possible so you don't give away location, except for the few times that your team might want to rush and catch people off guard, because normally people do walk. It's also good to note that crouching accomplishes the same thing as walking, but hardly anyone crouch walks around because you're infinitely slower while you do it. So it's not only your footsteps that cause noise, but anytime you interact with an object on the map, whether it's closing a door or climbing ropes. But a good thing to keep in the back of your mind is when you're climbing a rope and you are walking up to it, you will scale the rope quietly and they won't be able to hear you zipline. It's very useful. With all that being said, something that's going to come with experience is knowing when it's okay to run and when it's a better time to walk. Basically knowing how far you are from a potential enemy so you can silence your footsteps in time to possibly sneak up, get a free kill, or position yourself better without them knowing. And something worth noting is that if you are running and you pull out your knife, you will run a tad bit faster than someone running with their gun, but you run the risk of an enemy popping out and you not being ready for that quick gunfight because you do have a knife out. And yes, they do say not to run with scissors, but this is an exception. So our next tip is going to be something that involves a little bit of walking and running, which would be peeking corners. So typically there are like 2 to 3 good ways to peek a corner, or 3 popular ways. It would be juggle peeking, a slow peek, or a fast peek. Juggle peeking is when you get to the corner of a wall and you tap A quickly and then quickly tap D, so you move in one direction and then the opposite direction without making noise. This is very useful to get a quick pop shot and then duck back into cover without risking yourself. The next kind that most people do is a slow peek, where they slowly walk around a corner, which is useful because they won't hear you, but if they're watching that corner, they're most likely going to see you way before you see them. And the final tip is fast peeking. It's almost where someone runs right into the middle of the doorway, stops, and shoots. This can take people off guard because usually their crosshair is on the corner of the door frame. So a mix of all of these is really good, but juggle peeking is probably the most efficient way to get pop shots off without taking as many shots yourself. So for the last tip about movement, I would recommend that when you are shot, that you just try to turn and shoot the enemy shooting you, because if you are clipped by a bullet, your movement speed is drastically reduced and you almost have no chance of running away. So you have a better chance of actually just turning on them, hitting a lucky headshot and getting away. This is hard to practice because most of your instincts do tell you to run, but this is something that you should try to learn to get used to in Valorant. I don't have a good segue, but our last topic is going to be communication and sharing information with your team, which kind of goes hand in hand. And I'm not talking about sharing information like in the 3rd grade I fell and scraped my knee or something stupid like that. I'm talking about, positioning of enemies, where you're going to rotate to, where you want to place bomb, information like that, pertaining to the game. If you have good headphones, it's very useful to call out footsteps that you hear that your teammates might not hear, so they don't get snuck up on. It's also good to share when you do see someone. If you peek a corner and you see them holding a spot, to let people know, hey, watch out when you peek this, you might lose. Any information is useful, it can save a life. I will say though that vague information is worse than no information, because saying someone is over there gives them nothing. It might just make your teammate panic and look all around, but if you say, hey, they're coming from heaven, it gives them an exact place to know where to look. That being said, knowing callouts and what locations are called, that takes just in-game experience and overtime playing. A lot of friend groups even have different names for something, so you might look it up online, but call it something different and it won't help anyways. So it's just all about playing the game and learning it, but it's something very useful to try to memorize, is the callouts for the map. And each map has their own callouts, and they might use the same ones, like heaven usually refers to a high up platform, and there's multiple on every map. Something else that is good is that when you do go push that place that someone called out, is to call out when you use abilities. Because besides Arena's bullshit blind, everyone's flashbangs and blind also blind your teammates. So pushing, and then you might blind the enemy, but you blind everyone else, you're still kind of on your own. And it's just better to communicate that so you can coordinate abilities and push more effectively. There's also more terminology, not just to call out spots on the map, but things that you might want to do for a round. Like if someone's saying they want to do an eco round, this is an economy round. You try to save money, buy a light shield, maybe a pistol, and just kind of wait it out. That way, if you lose, you're not set at 0 and then you're bankrupt and can't even buy anything. Just like normal map callouts, this is another thing that's going to take experience, because there's terms such as frag, CT, things like that you'll just learn over time and pick up, but it's very useful to memorize them because they will keep coming back. With that said, I think this brings us to the end of the video. I tried to give you a short, sweet, to the point tips. No one wants to sit around for 20 minutes to learn the basics of a game. That being said, if you would like more content on Valorant, just leave a comment with what you would like to see, advanced tips, more in depth on shooting, a champion guide. Just let us know and we'll try to accommodate.